What is a freak off? The freak off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism.
He had everything to do with what she was wearing. She said she would buy outfits from sex shops and see which one he wanted her to wear. And then inside the actual hotel rooms of their apartments where the freak-offs took place, she said that Combs was in charge of lighting. It began with candles. It then moved to studio lighting.
They might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video.
OMG, grab your tea because this courtroom drama just hit peak chaos. Day 2 of Diddy's explosive trial began with a bang. Not in a legal sense, but an emotional one. His whole family walked into that courthouse with tight lips and heavy eyes. No one smiled. Not a soul. His twin daughters, Jessie and D'Lila, baby, they looked broken. They left the courthouse with their heads down, refusing to speak, their expressions screaming devastation. His mom, Janice, and sons, King and Justin, present but absolutely stone-faced. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room.
We need you to step to the side. Step to the side, please.
Are you guys, how do you go today?
Step to the side, please. Watch out, watch out. Watch your butt.
Big great. How can you bought it today? Congratulations at NYU, Chef. Give us a little space. Give us a little space. Give us a little space. Golden Nation.
Nice long you smile. Nice. That's
Step to the side, please.
feel like was like thinking by his current stuff. Yeah.
Wait.
Give us a little
Watch
space.
out, watch out.
Give us a little space, please.
Oh, my
Sorry about that. Give us a little space.
Yeah. Oh,
Chuck it in here.
guys. Oh. Boss down down. When you die, he's burning it.
back up. Sorry, back up.
Push you like got a white was right out of here. It's possible to knock.
Hey, man, Sean, man, be good, bro.
Okay.
Tell you.
By the end of the day, the courtroom had been flipped upside down. Why? Because something major dropped, something that could change the entire case.
The prosecution's star witness taking the stand, but it was more than that. It was how Cassie took that stand. You could hear a pin drop when those doors opened, and a visibly pregnant Cassie Ventura walking past a man she had not seen in 6.5 years, a man she says violently abused her for a decade, a man the prosecution said trafficked her. Well, she sat across from him, placed her overcoat behind her, turning her body slightly toward the jury, rubbing her pregnant belly throughout her testimony. Diddy, well, he was more fidgety than he was the day before. He was passing notes. He pushed himself away from the defense table and largely sat like that. They never seemed to make eye contact with one another, not even after she was crying about having loved him once and planning and participating in these freak-off sex parties because she feared him and she wanted to make him happy, but feeling worthless, feeling disgusting because she didn't want to do it. Now, with each moment, the testimony became more and more graphic. Her delivery, though, it never changed. It was matter of fact, steady, calm. At times, she was even critical of herself, walking us all through how a 10-album record deal came over a 10-year period of abuse and sexual humiliation. Now, once you hear Cassie's testimony, you'll understand why the courtroom was so tense.
Cassie, Diddy's former flame, stepped up and delivered jaw-dropping testimony, and honey, it was chilling. She told the court that Diddy had threatened to leak what she called videos if she didn't obey him. Yeah, you heard that right. Private, graphic tapes featuring her and others. These weren't just petty threats, they were power plays, and they were meant to control her body and soul.
That's what makes him unique, though.
Sure, but is that what he's doing? Is he running an entertainment and fashion industry, or is he running essentially a criminal organization?
By the way, we have a poll up right now. You can participate in it. Do you think Cassie Ventura was a victim or partner in this? Ready for this? 82%, well, this doesn't make sense. 82% say yes. I don't know if that's yes to, I think we need clarification. 82% say victim or partner. We'll get a clarification on that.
By the way,
right now.
But that's my answer to that question.
Oh,
Was
okay.
she a victim or a
82%
partner?
say victim. 82% say victim. Maybe based on we're reporting on the testimony right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think she is a victim if the allegations are true, but also she is involved in some of the criminal act. I mean, she's getting those prostitutes, right? She's making payments to them, allegedly. She's having them come, so she's involved in some of the alleged criminal activity. And that's an interesting point that wouldn't just apply to her. Other people in his orbit might be some combination of victim and co-conspirator.
But you know what? That video changes everything, because the argument would be, what do you think happens if she says no?
Yeah.
What do you think happens if she says, I'm not in the mood for a freak off tonight, I'm not gonna pay the dancer? That's what's gonna happen. That video is arguably the most important piece of evidence because it sets the stage when we're talking about coercion or force. Question from Angelina, how old was Cassie when they first started dating? I think she was 19 years old, so you're talking about a 17-year age difference. That's important. I think that's an important factor if you're talking about power and control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he's older and obviously has much more power anyway.
Sherry Williams asks, what kind of time is Diddy facing if he's found guilty?
Here's where it gets messy. Prosecutors are trying to show that Diddy used threats, textbook coercion, and this was their smoking gun. Except Cassie didn't say word for word. He said he'd leak it unless I did XYZ. So while it reeks of manipulation, legally, that dotted line isn't quite connected. The jury is left to piece it together themselves. But even without a direct quote, the shadow Diddy cast over Cassie's life, it's suffocating. Oh, and don't forget, he pulled this same kind of control over Kim Porter, the woman who mysteriously died right before she could expose him. Yeah, that part.
You seen how Albie Shore, he came out saying that Kim Porter death needs to be looked into?
I think that Al being his ex-wife, he have every right, knowing about the stuff that came out about Diddy and what he was doing. You understand what he has done in the past, and people have overlooked it. By him coming out and saying that he hoped that he could get her case reopened. There was a guy called John Paperwork, the Paperwork Party. They would put in an open petition to get Kim's case reopened. You understand what I'm saying? So I'll be sure doing this is showing that, you know, he still got love for Quincy's mother. He still want to find out the truth, because allegedly Kim was fine the day before and the day of her death, and then now she found in the bed dead from pneumonia. That just don't sound right, bro. That don't sound right at all.
So you feel the same way about her death being suspect?
I don't think nobody in America thinks there's nothing suspicious about Kim's death, bro. If you are rich like that, you could, you know, Kim had, I think, a net worth of like, what, 12 million a year or something like that? Kim could have called any doctor to come over and look at her. If she was that bad, you know, she could have called an ambulance or something like that. Everything is suspicious about her death, bro. And I don't think an autopsy was done on her. And if it was a half job.
You personally, right? What do you think happened to Kim Porter?
If I say something personal, bro, and my belief, and I put it on to the public, then I might be liable.
Now, Cassie didn't stop there. She painted a horrifying picture of what those freak-offs really looked like. She didn't want to be part of them, she dreaded them, but Diddy, he didn't want to hear no. She even said she brought it up gently so he would explode. That right there, that's fear. But sadly, the law needs more than fear. It needs proof of pressure, words, threats, force, and Cassie didn't lay it out that clearly. Still, the courtroom couldn't ignore the raw trauma she described.
This alleged criminal enterprise, and how, based on the opening statement from yesterday, he didn't just have staff who were helping him commit the crimes, but also covering them up. Just now, an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassie Ventura, how would he keep tabs on you? To which she apparently responds, he didn't live far apart. Oh, we didn't live far apart. He'd send security to come find me or a trusted assistant. Like who? David James, Christina Courtroom, who we all know has been a central figure in this case. Maybe not the criminal case, but she's come up in lawsuits before. The prosecutor asks her, was your relationship exclusive? Ventura replies, no. If she's naming names like David James or Christina Courtroom, do they have to testify, you think?
I don't think they have to testify, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would think this is all planned out, that she's going to indicate some people and then the prosecution is going to bring them in later in the trial to verify, right? One thing you really want to do with a witness like this, the defense is going to say that she's embellishing. They might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video, right? They can't just say she's a liar. But they're going to say she's exaggerating, she's embellishing, they're painting it a certain way because of the case. So you have to bring in these corroborating witnesses and whatever other corroborating evidence you have to verify what it is she's saying. So it would be very useful, for example, if she says, yes, David James came around to check on me on behalf of Mr. Combs, and then David James takes the stand and says, yes, I did that.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, Cassie said she was urinated on during these freak-offs. Let that sink in. She said it was disgusting. She choked. She wanted it to stop. When the prosecutor asked if she ever gave permission, she said no. And why didn't she say no clearly? Because in her words, it was obvious she didn't want that. But this is where the defense will sink their claws in. They'll say, where's the clear refusal? Where's the force? The law isn't about feeling bad. It's about proof. And that gray area, it's going to be the battleground.
It'll be interesting to see how they react and respond to the alleged victim, Cassie Ventura, because she is expecting her third child and is clearly pregnant. So how jurors will kind of see that or visually how they take that into consideration, we don't know. But really, they're supposed to make sure that they stay fair and impartial and pay attention to the facts, which is something even the judge warned them about before they were official jurors.
Diddy maintains his innocence against all charges brought against him. Cassie, the prosecution's key witness in the case against the embattled mogul.
The defense acknowledged that the videos of alleged freak-offs will be shown, but that those videos, they said, didn't come from the government's investigation so much as it came directly from Cassie's phone. But they were essentially trying to raise doubt about why did she hold on to these videos, and again making this argument that this case is about love and infidelity and money. But the prosecution is saying, no, you will hear from witnesses that will tell you that they were abused, they were kicked, they were punched, they were coerced to taking drugs and to performing sex acts. So this is only the beginning.
The 38-year-old singer said to get emotional on the stand as the prosecution brought up this disturbing security footage CNN uncovered of Diddy beating Cassie in a hotel.
Many people have seen that 2016 video of Sean Combs assaulting his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And the defense said, listen, what you witnessed was wrong. It was inhumane. It was horrible. But that was domestic violence, and they said that is not criminal enterprise, that is not racketeering. But both sides sort of making those compelling arguments and opening statements that for the prosecution, that he is guilty, for the defense obviously saying that he's not guilty of these crimes that he's alleged to have committed.
Cassie's husband, Alex Vane, stepping out in support against the defense's wishes. The judge ruling he'll have to leave should an alleged 2018 Cassie accuses Diddy of comes up after Diddy's lawyers noted they may call him as a witness, claiming he sent the rapper a threatening text over the alleged incident.
We know that according to previous hearings, she could be on that stand for 2 to 3 days.
Some jurors, they're probably sitting there like, of course she didn't want that. But others, they need black and white proof. And that's the dilemma. Then comes the bombshell. Diddy, or Combs as they kept referring to him in court, orchestrated every freak off like a twisted film director. She said they could last days, the longest 4 whole days. She was expected to bring in escorts using Craigslist and escort agencies. And not just locally, we're talking international. Miami to Ibiza to Vegas.
And how were these freak-offs orchestrated?
So Cassie kind of walked the jury through what her role was in the freak-offs and how she said that Combs had choreographed them. He was the director in charge. And what she described was that these freak-offs lasted from 36 to 72 hours. The longest one, she said, lasted 4 days. And through that period, she said her role had evolved from initially Combs setting up the first one to then it becoming essentially her job. These freak-offs, she said, were occurring weekly. And what she was responsible for was finding these escorts, using Craigslist, some of these other escort services, helping them travel to certain locations from Miami to Ibiza, to New York, to LA, to Las Vegas. And that she worked with Combs's business travel people in order to move people around, saying that they would project that they were potential employers and getting them to move. But she said that he had everything to do with what she was wearing. She said she would buy outfits from sex shops and see which one he wanted her to wear. And then inside the actual hotel rooms, their apartments where the freak-offs took place, she said that Combs was in charge of lighting. It began with candles, it then moved to studio lighting, that he was directing how they moved from each action of each sexual act in these freak-offs, and even the amount of baby oil that they were wearing. She said that he wanted them to be glistening, and so he would often encourage them to put on more baby oil. And then part of that testimony, she said, was that she had engaged and used numerous drugs, including ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, cocaine, marijuana, and the prosecution showed text messages where before a freak-off, she is texting Combs asking, which colored pill do I take from your Louis Vuitton med bag? And he directed her which one.
Cassie even said she'd go pick outfits and let Diddy choose what she'd wear. The lighting, Diddy controlled that. The baby oil, he demanded they glisten. This wasn't chaos, it was choreographed. He even told her what drugs to take. In text messages, she literally asked him, which pill do I take from your Louis Vuitton med bag? And he told her. She admitted to using ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, coke, marijuana, and all while being managed by him like a puppet. Then came the domestic violence bomb. Cassie said he beat her bad. So bad she hid in a hotel for a week until her bruises faded. In that video, yeah, the one where Diddy is caught physically attacking her, even his lawyers didn't deny it. But here's the catch. This isn't a domestic violence case. It's about trafficking and coercion, and Diddy's team is painting it as a toxic relationship that went both ways.
I can tell you that immediately, the moment she opened her mouth, you could see that Combs was listening intently to everything that she has to say, as well as those jurors. People know that she was that star witness, the key person in all of this. When you think about that civil suit that came out in 2023, that was settled the day after, she really is the person that connects all the dots. When you look at the indictment and you look at some of the charges, she's the one talking about the freak-offs and what was involved and how she had to act. The prosecution is asking her questions to show that she wasn't in control. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
And at some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that, And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better.
Now here's the twist. Prosecutors want to show the jury one of the actual freak-off videos, but the defense? They're begging the judge to keep it away from the media. No one knows what's on it. No one. But depending on what it shows, this could make or break the case. Right now, the jury sees Cassie in court, calm, composed, pregnant. But if they see her in that video all glammed up mid-act, it could change everything. It could help her, or it could absolutely destroy her credibility. And nobody knows which way it'll go. And then Cassie dropped the Intercontinental Hotel incident.
She was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Gosh, it's so difficult to hear all of these details. And since taking the stand, Cassie has been emotional. What made Cassie emotional on the stand?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Right after the one from 2016, where Diddy's violence became viral. She said she tried to leave a freak off because she had a premiere and Diddy allegedly beat her in the middle of the hallway. She ran to the elevator, then was slammed to the floor. That memory, it shattered everyone in court, and suddenly, all those whispers about what happened to Kim Porter didn't feel like whispers anymore. They felt like echoes of the same nightmare. And yes, Kim's name came up in court. This isn't just about Cassie anymore, so where does this leave us?
Cassie Ventura is sharing new details about her relationship with Sean Diddy Combs. While testifying against her ex in his sex trafficking trial, the pregnant singer, who is currently expecting her 3rd child with husband Alex Vane, reveals to the jury that there was actually an overlap for when she and the late Kim Porter dated the rap mogul. In court, Ventura says, per NBC News, that she and Combs first started their physical relationship when they went on a trip to Miami. It was when they returned home that they began spending more time together, though the relationship was, quote, not public for many years. Ventura adds that Combs didn't want it to, quote, look bad, but also knew it was because of his children and personal things like his family. When she was asked who he was with at the time, Ventura replies, quote, Kim Porter. Combs and Porter, who unexpectedly died in 2018, reportedly dated on and off from 1994 to 2007. With them becoming parents to son Christian, twin daughters D'Lila and Jessie, and Porter's son Quincy, whom she had from a previous relationship. Their romance ended in 2007, with her choosing to pack up all of her belongings and move out of their home while Combs was out of town. Porter has previously said to Essence magazine that she wanted it to be, quote, dramatic, adding, quote, if I pack up everything, twins and all, it means I'm out. Puffy's an action person, not a talk person. Ventura and Combs reportedly dated from 2007 to 2018, with her sharing after their romance that he was frequently violent towards the end of their relationship. Last May, a 2016 video of the rapper assaulting her surfaced. In hotel surveillance video published by CNN, Combs was seen chasing the singer down a hotel hallway before grabbing her, pulling her to the ground, and kicking her multiple times. The footage appeared to match up with an alleged incident detailed in the singer's lawsuit filed against the Grammy winner.
I don't really want to say what I really believe, brother, because you know, what I really believe is that they might got into a little spat, a little fight, or something went down, and Puff did that play fighting stuff that he always do, and that pillow fighting stuff, and probably smothered her. But I wouldn't say that on the air. I wouldn't let people know that he probably smothered her to death, and because she had a bad cold or she felt some kind of way that she died doing them having that play fight with the pillow fights and everything and smothered her. But I'm not gonna say nothing like that on the program because I don't wanna get myself in trouble. As far as saying that with him and say, oh, he said this and he said that. Nah, I'm just being facetious. I'm just being sarcastic that if, you know, in those type of realms and those type of things, because I'm never gonna say that he probably smothered her to death. I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they rush to do the coroner come in and say, yo, she had pneumonia. She died of pneumonia, but nobody did no autopsy or nothing like that. Get out of here. Have her funeral, put her in a gold casket. It takes, what, 2 months to get those gold caskets? Had it within a week? Or you're a millionaire, I guess you can. You're a multi-millionaire, you can get it that quick. Then had somebody at the funeral home, had a bodyguard at the funeral home watching the dead body for 24 hours up until the funeral.
Wow, I ain't know that. That's my first time hearing about that. But for the people that's not familiar with Diddy and Kim Porter relationship, can you let the people know a little bit about their relationship?
Well, Kim was very spoiled. Kim, Misa, Sarah Chapman, and Tanisha. Not so more Misa, but it was Tanisha, Sarah Chapman, and Kim. They were all good friends. Puff and Misa was together first, over there uptown and everything like that.
Prosecutors did get their punches in. That video threat, that's major, but it's not a slam dunk. The case is still missing key pieces. It all comes down to the jury. Will they see Diddy's manipulation, his threats, and Cassie's fear as enough to convict? Or will the gray areas give Diddy an out? Either way, one thing is certain. This trial, it's not just a scandal, it's a full-blown reckoning, and it's far from over.